You have a son. That is the thing you keep not saying. That is the sentence underneath every other sentence. You had a son, and you stopped paying attention for one afternoon, and the gun was where you left it, and now you are the kind of man who goes on suicide missions because the math works out better that way. So when they say the gate connects to other planets, and it is one way and there is no extraction plan and the probability of return is not a number they are comfortable putting in writing, you say, sure. You say, when do we leave? You say it the way other people say, please pass the salt. You go through the gate to Abydos expecting to die there, and then you do not die there, and that is where all your problems actually start, because now you have to come back. They close the gate and reopen it a year later and tell you the Goa'uld are real and Ra was not the only one, and there are hundreds of them ruling the galaxy through technology so advanced that the gap between them and Earth is the kind of gap that makes serious people use the word insurmountable, and then immediately request a budget extension. The general says you are being reactivated. He looks at you like he is giving you something back. You say, what time do we leave? This is not courage. You should know that. Courage is when the math scares you and you go anyway. You are doing something different. You are doing the thing where the math stopped being the point a while ago, and you just keep moving because stopping is the thing you cannot do. Stopping means the afternoon comes back. Stopping means you sit in a room with yourself and your own company without the specific mercy of there being something enormous to deal with. The galaxy is enormous. The galaxy is extremely helpful that way. They give you a team. There is a rule somewhere that says the person assembling the team should care about the team surviving. You follow this rule. You follow it harder than you have followed most things. You look at these people and something happens in your chest that you do not examine, because examining it would mean having to say what it is, and what it is has a name. And the name is the thing you stopped letting yourself use after the afternoon. The scientist who can read languages that have not had a speaker in 10,000 years and is still surprised by everything. The captain who is better at this than you are at most things, and who you pretend not to notice being better so she does not stop. The Jaffa who has been carrying a larval Goa'uld in his chest his entire life in service to a false god and who walks into your orbit one day and stays, like the decision was already made. You did not ask any of them if they wanted this. You do not ask people if they want the things they need. You brief the team the way you do everything, which is to say approximately, and with heavy use of the phrase, we will figure it out. The scientist gives context. The captain gives structure. You give the impression that you have things under control by never once suggesting you do not. This is a significant percentage of what leadership actually is, and anyone who tells you otherwise has not led anything past a PowerPoint presentation. The first mission through the gate as a team is a planet that looks like someone's idea of a planet. Green, 2 suns, the smell of something that is not pine but is trying. You step through and stand there, and the scientist is already talking, and the captain is already scanning the perimeter, and the Jaffa is already the most composed person present, and you stand there in the light of 2 suns on a planet in another part of the galaxy and think about absolutely nothing. That is not an achievement. That is the goal. You have gotten very good at it. The Goa'uld are the part that would bother most people. Gods for 5,000 years, ships the size of small cities, eyes that glow, and voices that resonate in your sternum, and the absolute certainty that they are the most important thing in any room they have ever entered. You find them exhausting, not frightening, exhausting. Because there is a specific kind of tiredness you develop around things that want you to be afraid of them, and you have been carrying that tiredness for a long time now, and the Goa'uld are just one more thing, adding to the pile. When one of them tells you that you are insignificant and your world will kneel, you have a choice. You can be moved by this. Or you can say something. You say something. You say it flat. Same tone as everything else, because that is the thing they cannot account for. The thing that does not fit in their 5,000-year model of how humans behave when confronted with divine authority. A human who is not impressed. A human who finds their whole production kind of a lot. A human who has, at this point, been through the gate enough times that a glowing-eyed being declaring your civilization unworthy barely registers as the most unusual thing that happened before lunch. The first system lord you meet looks at you, the way a person looks at a door that should be locked and is not. You say something, he tries again. You say something else. At some point, a staff weapon fires and everyone runs and the gate opens and you come through on the other side and the tech on duty says, "Sir, how was the mission?" And you say, "Fine, fine." The official debrief category for everything that happened and did not kill you and that you are not going to think about more than is operationally required. The reports are a specific kind of writing you have developed over a career. Factually complete, emotionally empty. Events occurred. Actions were taken. You write your own contributions as execute mission parameters, which is the military way of saying, I did things, and they worked, and I do not want to explain what things. Year 1 has 46 missions. You know this number without looking it up. You know all the numbers without looking them up. That is a thing that happened to you sometime around mission 20, and you did not ask for it, and you do not mention it. 2 missions you came back with fewer people than you left with. One where you sat in the gate room after and did not move for longer than is worth specifying, and the mountain went around you, and nobody made you explain it, and you did not. The general asks how you are doing. He means it. He is the kind of general who means things, which is rarer than the rank suggests. You say good. You say the team is solid. You redirect to mission parameters, because mission parameters are the specific territory where you are competent and comfortable, and the general knows this and lets you do it, and this is why the 2 of you work. The scientist is the one you did not expect. That is not something you say, but it is the true version of what happened, which is that you went to Abydos expecting to end things there, and instead found a man who believed in something so completely that it rearranged what you thought believing looked like, and you came back from Abydos carrying that rearrangement along with your gear and the specific weight of having chosen to return. He talks too much. He knows too much about everything except the things that would help him in a firefight. He gets excited about artifacts in situations where the operationally correct response is to not be excited about artifacts. He has the quality of someone who has never once in his life looked at something and thought, okay, but is it actually relevant right now? A quality that is both a serious tactical liability and the reason he keeps finding things that change the shape of what you understand about the galaxy. You keep him alive like it is the only job that actually matters. You do not say this. You perform the opposite of it, the exasperation, the rolled eyes, the "are you kidding me right now, Daniel?" that has become its own language between you. But there is a calculation running underneath all the missions, and the calculation has a variable that does not appear in any official report, and the variable is him, and the variable is also the others, and what it means that you came back from Abydos when you were not supposed to, and found people your body has decided it is responsible for. You did not agree to this. You are extremely responsible for it anyway. Carter figures it out at some point, not the whole thing. She is too careful for that, too aware of chain of command and professional distance, but she figures out the shape of it. You can tell by the way she looks at you after the missions where something nearly went wrong, the specific look of someone tracking the gap between what you say and what you mean. You do not acknowledge this. She does not acknowledge this. This works fine. Teal is different. Teal has spent his entire life understanding things that are not said. He was a first prime. He served a false god for decades with full knowledge that it was false because the god had his son's life in its hands. He knows things about continuing through impossible circumstances that you have never had to put into words because he is already living in the same neighborhood. He says very little. You say very little. The 2 of you can sit in the commissary for 20 minutes saying nothing useful and come out of it having communicated something. The jokes are the thing people notice first. They see a man who is unimpressed by gods and dismissive of galaxy-ending threats and who responds to beings who have been alive for 5,000 years with the energy of someone who has already heard this speech and would like to be done by 4. They see the performance and they think they understand something about you. They understand something. It is not the thing they think they understand. What the jokes actually are is a load-bearing wall. You remove them and something falls. The jokes are what stands between you and the alternative, which is standing in front of something enormous and saying out loud what you actually think about it. And what you actually think about it is not a thing you are willing to say out loud in a mountain in Colorado or anywhere else. So instead, you say something flat, something just wrong enough to be funny. Something that makes Carter try not to smile and makes Daniel look briefly betrayed and makes Teal say nothing in a way that means something. And the enormous thing is still there, the thing you just had to do, the cost of what it took, but you have moved through it now instead of staying in it and moving through, is the only direction available. Year 2, and the galaxy gets bigger in the specific way, where bigger means worse. The Asgard arrive. Small gray beings so far beyond humanity that the comparison makes the Goa old gap look like a step. They are fighting their own war against the replicators, machines that consume other machines to build more machines, a process with no goal and no interest in the consequences or the feelings of anyone in its path. The Asgard do not ask for help because asking does not fit the category of things they do. But occasionally, they look at you with their enormous eyes and say something that means, we cannot do this alone. You say, sure. You say, we will figure it out. You figure it out. Afterward, they look at you with something between scientific fascination and the fondness a very old person has for something that will not last long but is doing its best. They call you the greatest champion of the human race at one point. To your face. You say something, and they look at each other in whatever passes for Asgard, looking at each other, and the conversation moves on. The classification on what you are doing gets higher. You knew people before. There is a woman who asks how you are doing and means it. And you give her the version that is true and empty, and she can tell the difference, and eventually, the space between what you can say and what is actually happening gets wide enough that you stop calling as often as you should. Not because you do not want to, because the alternative is explaining, and the explaining requires a clearance, and the clearance does not come with relationships. There is a mission where you have to make a choice, and the choice does not go in the report in the way the thing that happened actually went. The report says, mission parameters were adjusted in the field. It does not say what it cost or what you looked like in the 30 seconds after when nobody was watching except you, which is the one witness you cannot debrief and who writes no reports but forgets nothing. You go to the commissary. You make a joke about something in the briefing that does not merit a joke, and Carter almost smiles. You go to bed. You lie there in the dark, under the mountain, and think about absolutely nothing for exactly as long as it takes until it is morning and there is somewhere to be. 3 years, and you have saved the world a number of times that your personnel file does not reflect because most of it is classified above the level of people who process personnel files. Saved is a word that implies the thing stayed saved. The gate does not close. The Goa old regroup. The replicators adapt. You are maintaining a process. You will be maintaining this process until you are not. This is fine. This is what you are for. The kid thing happens one afternoon, and then for a while, you are someone's father again, and then you are not. This happens in a way that does not get written here because there is no way to write it. That does not make it into something it should not be, which is a plot beat. It is not a plot beat. It is a thing that happened to you and that the mission continued past and that you continued past with the mission because continuing was the thing available, and you are, at this point, very good at available. Daniel dies. The point is that the calculation you have been running since Abydos produces an output you did not let yourself account for, and the output is this. You stand in it. You keep going. Because he would want you to, and because Carter and Teal are still there, and because stopping is still the thing you cannot do, and the reasons have been stacking up for 3 years, and you do not remove pieces from the structure, because the structure is what standing upright looks like from the inside. He comes back. He comes back because this is the kind of galaxy that does that gives things back in ways you did not expect and were not prepared for, and when he comes back, you say something. You say it flat. He looks at you the way he always looks at you when he thinks you are not being sincere, and you are being the most sincere you ever get. A being of significant power and unclear motivation contacts you at some point in year 3. The conversation is about things that are not operationally relevant, but matter anyway. It is curious about you specifically, about why you are the why you are, about the gap between the performance and what the performance is covering. You say something, you make it a joke. The being looks at you with whatever expression means something to a being that old and says nothing for a moment. You say something else, also a joke, a smaller one. And then you stop talking because something in the room has shifted in a way you cannot explain operationally, and do not try. The being says you carry a great deal. You say, I carry standard field equipment and whatever Daniel thinks is archaeologically significant, which is usually more than the weight limit, but nobody has successfully stopped him yet. The being says yes. And then the conversation ends because you make it end. Because that is what you do when conversations get close to the territory you do not enter. You find the exit, and you use it, and you come out on the other side in the hallway, and then you walk to wherever you are supposed to be next. There is a night, not a specific one, or maybe it is a specific one. You do not need to know which hour when you are sitting in the gate room after everyone has gone and the gate is inactive and the room has the particular quality of large empty rooms that were built to contain something enormous and are currently not containing it. The gate is just a ring. A very large ring made of materials not in any catalog, covered in symbols your brain stopped trying to categorize sometime in year 1, but a ring. Sitting there, you sit in front of it for a while. You are not thinking about the missions. You are not running the count. You are just there with the ring that connects to everything, that has taken you to 100 and some places you do not add up right now, that opened once before any of this started and took you somewhere you were not supposed to come back from, and you came back from. Someone left the gate room light at half intensity. It makes the gate look like it is considering something. What happened is Carter, who is somewhere in this mountain right now running calculations on something that will matter next week, and who looks at you sometimes in the specific way she has of tracking the gap. What happened is Teal, who is carrying something in his chest since before you were born, and who stands in silence with you in corridors and means something by it. What happened is the scientist who keeps coming back, who dies and returns and is surprised by things constantly, and who still believes with the completeness of someone who has never learned to protect themselves from their own belief. What happened is that you came back from Abydos. You are here because you came back when you were not supposed to, and the universe decided to make that your problem, and you decided to make that the thing that kept you moving, and the people accumulated, and the missions ran into the hundreds, and somewhere in all of it. In the gap between the afternoon and now, something happened that you do not have a word for in report format. The gate does not turn on. You sit there with it anyway. Then you stand up. You check the time. You have a briefing in 7 hours, and there is something on the mission prep you want to look at before Carter gets there and raises 3 objections you would rather have thought of first. You pick up your coffee, which has been cold for a while now. You take a drink of it. You make a face that nobody sees. You go back to work. That is the whole thing. That is all of it. A man who was not supposed to come back from Abydos sitting in the gate room at half light for a while and then getting up and going back to work. Not because the weight is lighter, not because anything was resolved, but because the gate is there and the team is there, and tomorrow there will be something enormous that needs dealing with, and you are, at this point, the person who deals with it. That is not a plan. Plans are what you had before. This is something else. You walk down the corridor. Somewhere behind you, the gate room hums with the specific vibration of a mountain that contains something it was not built for. You do not look back.